Canada's political landscape is shifting, and the latest Abacus Data federal poll conducted on February 23rd reveals where each party stands as we inch closer to the next election. Will the Conservatives maintain their lead? Can the Liberals recover? And how are the smaller parties performing? Here's a deep dive into the national numbers and what they could mean moving forward. At the national level, the Conservative Party of Canada, CPC, is firmly in the lead with 41% support, extending their dominance over the Liberal Party, LPC, which sits at 29%. The New Democratic Party, NDP, holds 14%, struggling to gain more ground. Meanwhile, the Bloc Québécois, BQ, is polling at 6%, the Green Party, GPC, at 4%, and the People's Party of Canada, PPC, at 3%. What does this tell us? The Conservatives are building momentum, while the Liberals are struggling to close the gap. The NDP remains stagnant, and smaller parties like the Greens and PPC continue to hover in the low single digits. But when we break this down by region, we get a clearer picture of how this race is shaping up Atlantic Canada. In Atlantic Canada, we see a much closer race. The CPC leads with 42%, but the Liberals are not far behind at 37%. The NDP is at 14%, while the Green Party sits at 4% and the PPC at 2%. This region has traditionally been a Liberal stronghold, but these numbers suggest that the Conservatives are making significant inroads, possibly flipping key ridings in Newfoundland and New Brunswick. If these trends hold, the next election could see a major shakeup in Atlantic Canada, Quebec. Now, let's move to Quebec, where the race looks quite different. The Liberals are leading with 34%, maintaining their traditional dominance. The Bloc Québécois follows at 27%, keeping a strong hold on their base. Meanwhile, the Conservatives at 24% are gaining ground, but still face an uphill battle in this province. The NDP sits at 8%, a sign that their past dominance in Quebec has faded. As for the Greens and PPC, both are polling at just 3%, with little sign of significant movement. What's interesting here, the Bloc remains a key player, and any shift in their numbers could drastically change seat counts. The Conservatives may be growing, but they still have work to do to seriously challenge the Liberals in Quebec, Ontario. In Ontario, the largest battleground province, the Conservatives hold a commanding lead at 45%, while the Liberals trail at 31%. The NDP sits at 14%, unable to gain much traction, and both the PPC and Greens are tied at 4% each. This is bad news for Justin Trudeau and the Liberals, as Ontario has historically been their stronghold. The Conservatives' 14-point lead suggests they are not just holding their base, but expanding it, particularly in suburban and rural areas. If these numbers hold, the Liberal seat count in Ontario could shrink significantly, posing a serious challenge to their re-election hopes. Manitoba. In Manitoba, it's a clear Conservative sweep. The CPC is polling at a dominant 56%, while the NDP comes in at a distant 25%. The Liberals are struggling with just 16%, while the PPC and Greens sit at 2% and 1% respectively. This suggests Manitoba is becoming increasingly solid Conservative territory, and if the trend continues, the Liberals may lose key urban ridings in Winnipeg, where they have historically had some strength, Alberta. In Alberta, it's more of the same. The Conservatives hold an overwhelming lead at 58%. The NDP and Liberals are tied at 17%, a sign that neither party is making serious gains in the province. The PPC is polling at 8%, a notable figure, and the Greens remain at just 1%. This confirms what we already know. Alberta is deep Conservative territory. However, the PPC's relatively strong showing at 8% is something to watch, as it could indicate some dissatisfaction among Conservative voters, potentially splitting the right-wing vote in certain ridings. British Columbia. Finally, let's head over to British Columbia, where the race is tighter than in other regions. The CPC leads with 40%, but the Liberals are at 27%, and the NDP is still a force at 20%. The Green Party is making a stronger showing here, polling at 11%, while the PPC lags at just 1%. British Columbia has always been a highly competitive and unpredictable province, and these numbers suggest that multiple parties are still in the game. The NDP's 20% support means they still have influence, while the Greens' 11% shows that they remain relevant, particularly in environmentally conscious ridings. If any shifts occur here, BC could be a major wildcard in the next election. With these numbers in mind, the next federal election is shaping up to be a tough battle for the Liberals, while the Conservatives are poised to make major gains. What do you think about these latest poll results? Will the Conservatives maintain their momentum? Can the Liberals bounce back? Let us know in the comments below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more political updates. Stay tuned because the race is just getting started.